Okay, so when discussing diversity and oppression with our group, many people face oppression in some type of way, and just us ourselves as women, we have faced oppression. Oppression happens worldwide, and it even goes back to biblical times when there was enslavement with the Israelites. When a group has more access to power and privilege, it can be used to oppress another group because they have more power over them. And I did find this in the Psychology of Oppression ebook. And in that, it also discusses different parts of oppression and different people who go through oppression, such as people of color, indigenous people, immigrants, refugees, women, the LGBTQ community, people who have disabilities, different social groups, whether they're young or old, different classes, the middle class and such, lower class, upper class. And it also discusses the Black Lives Matter movement. And we also discussed as a group the Me Too movement. There's many different movements that come along from oppression. Something that I found really interesting in the ebook that I found is the quotation, "Historic trauma in turn may be contributing to many issues facing Indigenous people today, such as alcohol and drug use, domestic violence, depression, and suicide." And I have just seen this myself with this being an interest of mine. It really impacts the Native Americans today when they are stuck in their communities. They have really bad alcohol and drug use problems. And this is just because of the colonization that happened many years ago. It's still happening today. And going over to diversity, as social workers, we should be standing against oppression and fight for cultural diversity in our society. Being culturally sensitive and understanding can help create a better service with our clients. Having more training and education in this field can make this happen. I found this in the article, Increasing Cultural Understanding and Diversity in an Applied Behavioral Analysis. I found that the non-white Hispanic population grew by 43% in the year 2000 to 2010. And non-white Hispanics are projected to constitute 1/3 of the United States population by the end of 2060. Something else is culture plays a really critical role when working with our individuals. It helps them to develop and function in our society. We can help guide them and shape their values and beliefs and behavior throughout their lives. It's really important for us to have a positive role on our clients, especially when they come from different cultures and different kinds of diversity. It's really important for us to be there for our clients and understand where they're coming from.
Right. I think that a lot of the cultural awareness is incredibly important to social workers, because when you're working with clients, you need to understand what is valued by them because of their culture might not be valued to you as a social worker. What you might deem as respectful is disrespectful to them based on their culture, and that's important to know, especially if you're trying to build that therapeutic alliance and to help them obtain goals. And their goals are going to be centered around a lot of those cultural beliefs, such as their strengths, their support systems. All of that is going to play a part in your interventions and goal setting. And I think it's important to kind of have a firm understanding of oppression and like the consequences of it, such as trauma, and that's also going to play a role in how you're going to work with your clients, especially in advocacy and knowing where that power comes from to kind of be able to facilitate and advocate appropriately in order to empower your clients and overcome that oppression.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think it's really important for social workers to be familiar with their clients' cultural backgrounds and values. In the conflict role play that we did, I think if the social worker didn't know that much about the Hispanic culture and didn't realize, why the mother valued family time and education so much, she might not have been able to assist with interventions as much.
Mm-hmm. So we can move on to why we decided to use our interventions in our role play.
Okay. So the first intervention that we used was the common ground exercise. And we decided to use this because in the conflict that we created, we had a mother who was really valuing that Hispanic culture, the strong family ties, the education, and we had a daughter who was kind of having a hard time kind of merging both cultures in her identity, and they were having a very difficult time communicating that with one another, and it just turned into an argument, and they weren't hearing what the other person was saying or needing. So the first step that we thought would be good would be the common ground exercise, because it allowed both the mother and the daughter to voice their opinions and be heard, and showed them how to listen to each other and get back to a place where they can start communicating effectively to move forward to the goal to alleviate that conflict.
And the second intervention technique we used was nonviolent communication. We thought this would be good because in our conflict, the mother and daughter had different observations of what was going on, and they weren't understanding each other's feelings and needs, and they were both demanding things from each other. So using this technique, they were able to they were able to verbalize how what they were observing of the situation without being subjective or exaggerating. They were also able to verbalize their feelings and needs. And then lastly, they could request things from each other that they could both agree to do instead of demanding that the other person just does what they want. So this was a good technique that they could first hear each other, but then they could also give to the other person.
And then we can move on to the stages that our group ended with in our role plays.
Okay, so when the role play first started, everybody was in chaos. Like the mother and the daughter were not getting along, constantly arguing, weren't really hearing one another. So that was definitely the chaos stage. At the end of the common ground exercise, they were at the norming stage, where they were just starting to respect each other's viewpoints and opinions, starting to understand them, and starting to move from looking at their own individual viewpoints and work together as a team to kind of alleviate that conflict. And then at the end of nonviolent communication, they were moving on more towards like the performing stage or the working stage, where they were working together as a team to find that common goal, to have that functional family unit. And then eventually it would move on, it was starting to move on to like the adjourning, where they came up with that resolution.
So this is the end of our presentation, and thank you everyone for listening.